What up, Peter?
Happy Friday, Miami. This is Buy, Sell, Hold Miami, a real estate podcast. I'm Peter Zalewski. I'm a condo consultant. I'm also the founder of Miami Condo Investment Club. I am here with my co-host, the moderator of our discussion, Daniel Hernandez. He is a real estate professional over at Compass Real Estate in Coconut Grove. He does single-family houses, he does condos, he does residential. So, Daniel, how's it going? Happy Friday
Happy
ish.
Friday-ish. If you've been a follower of our show, you might notice there are some differences today. A, well, uh, well, you wouldn't know this, but this is a pre-recorded episode. Why? Because Peter was so grateful with his time, generous with his time. I'm grateful for his generosity. I'm out of town. So behind me aren't flamingos. It's not a wallpaper of flamingos. There's a dirty hotel room behind me. Even realtors get to take vacation every once in a while, but I will never take a break from this show. And what is this show? If you're joining us for the first time, as Peter mentioned, this is Buy, Sell, Hold Miami. I'm not in Miami today. Not going to tell you where I am. And our format of the show, if you ever watched ESPN, they get little prompts and they have between 5 and 30 or maybe even 60 seconds to talk about it, and then they got to move on for the next topic. Well, you know what? I like to think that real estate is a little more complicated than sports, so we allocate 7 minutes-ish to each one of our topics. You have us for an hour, and all of our topics have to do about South Florida. We have some larger thematic national themes, but it's all about real estate. Right? So anything we talk about, we're trying to back into real estate. If it's political, real estate. If it's civil, real estate. Development, real estate. You guys get it, right? So, Peter, let's kick off today. Build, baby, build, but still can't afford rent. You sent me a story, and I believe the byline was something along the lines of Miami builds more apartments this year than any other metropolitan area in the country.
Yep, that's right. It's coming out of the South Florida Business Journal. South Florida Business Journal story says just under 16,000 new units are expected to be delivered in South Florida this year. It would actually be the seventh largest metro area for apartment completions this year in terms of nationwide, according to the report. And breaking it down, you have roughly about 5,300 new units coming in Miami-Dade County. You're going to have another 1,700 in Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood, 1,500, and West Palm Beach, about 900. So there's a ton of new condos coming online at the same time that rents are falling. In the story, they talk about how many rents are falling. And what I did just for shits and giggles is I asked Gemini AI, which is what I'm using, and I asked them, I said, how many rentals have been built since 2010 that are at least 3 stories tall and have a minimum of 50 units? And Gemini AI said, well, we don't really know. I said, okay, why don't you fast forward and why don't you tell us how many units have been built since 2020. So let's say right when the pandemic was hitting, remember, everybody was flooding into South Florida. There was this tremendous demand. You had low interest rates. So how many apartments were built since 2020? What Gemini AI is saying, roughly about 300 condo towers that are at least 3 stories tall. So it wouldn't really be a tower, it'd be kind of like a mid-rise, but let's just call them
Right, like
towers.
a garden
300 towers.
apartment complex.
Yeah, well, I was trying to tap it into or peg it to the milestone inspection report, which comes in with the condos related to the Surfside condo disaster, which will
Right,
be what
because they
story we're
say
going to be
a
covering shortly.
condo is 3 stories of habitable space.
Correct. But from a unit count perspective, Gemini AI says roughly about 85,000 units have come online or in the somewhere in the pipeline since 2020. And this report from South Florida Business Journal says we have a ton coming. So I
But
think
but
the
those are
takeaway.
but those are market rate units, right? This is 2020. This is pre-live local. This is pre really leaning into all of these RTZ ordinances. This is
Correct, correct,
before
correct.
affordability crisis was a political talking point.
That's right. Yep, you're right about that. And I think the takeaway is you need to compare that to what you're doing up on the condo side as well. Because remember, the only difference between a condo and a rental is a 300-page document called the Declaration of Condominium. I'm not an attorney. Check with your attorney. You file this declaration of condominium. The state recognizes it. The property appraiser recognizes it. All of a sudden, you get a condo. If you take that 300-page declaration of condominium, you rip it up, you terminate it. Now it reverts back to a rental. So today's rental is tomorrow's condo. And that's the way you really kind of look at it.
Well,
So we are
let me
bringing
ask
on
you
a
this,
ton of
Peter.
new
Though
product.
you said something interesting, and the history of the condominium market in Miami actually starts with multifamily apartments, right? Because there were all these multifamily apartments built in the 50s and the 60s, some even older on Miami Beach, right? And then there was the condo conversion wave in the 70s and the 80s, and so many of these old buildings were converted into condos. So you look at them and you go, well, that kind of looks like an apartment building because it was an apartment building. So do you think that a lot of these contemporary multifamily that are coming online, you think they might convert to condo one day? Is that what you're saying?
I thought we would have had a greater wave of condo conversions in that 2021, 2022, 2023 era when there was such demand. There were people queuing up to come in and overbid and overpay on condos. But for some reason, they simply, these developers, these REITs, whoever's
They just
owning it,
ground
they
up
chose
development.
not to. Yeah. They simply chose to sit on it. I do consulting for some groups that do rentals, and my recommendation was convert this stuff, get out the door. And they were all saying no, they had a 20-year hold or a horizon or something like that. Why they didn't exit, I don't know. Especially given the fact so much new product came online because money was cheap. And oh,
Well, there
by the
was so
way,
much appreciation. Why not just take your check and go home?
exactly, tap out, call it a day. But then again, you could say it's job security.
Well, job security, and then there's different type of investment thesis, and there's we like to say here on the show there's a product for every investment thesis and portfolio in South Florida. So if you like short-term rentals and you got some of those in your portfolio, I wouldn't say put everything in your portfolio as short-term rental, but if there's a space in your portfolio for that, we got short-term rental. If you want a $10,000, $30,000 a month single-family home in your portfolio, hey, we got some of those too. Um, I just wonder, and I was talking to a real estate attorney several weeks ago, and we were talking about, and we're going to talk more about this story down the rundown. But the Amancio Ortega Sabadell building, 1111 Brickell, the office building that he purchased for $275 million, I believe. But he actually took out the previous owner, KKR, and they purchased that building back in 2018. Forget this, 248.5. So, and probably
Wow.
the craziest bull run that Miami has really ever seen, right? I mean, it's is that factual? Am I talking out of my ass? Is 2018 to 2025, is that is
In
that the
terms
biggest
of what we're
appreciation?
talking condos
Dirt
or
appreciation.
on the appreciation
Seven
side,
seven year dirt appreciation.
it probably is, to be honest with you, because so many more people were playing
I'm,
in. You had these
and I
crazy
say dirt because like
projections.
Sabadell's an office building, single family had its own appreciation trajectory, and condos had its own appreciation trajectory. But around the country, we're talking about how office buildings, especially not the super high end Class A plus office buildings, they're having a tough time. I mean, people are taking tremendous haircuts in New York City, tremendous haircuts in San Francisco, although probably less so now with this AI stuff calling everybody back to the Bay Area. And from the folks we speak to on the ground here in South Florida, the only office space that is like killing it is the really high end stuff and specialized stuff like medical space, right?
Yep, that's right. And but on the really high end stuff, I'm not sure that there's enough actual tenants because remember Stephen Ross, the developer from the related company
The
out of New
related
York, the one who
companies.
owns the one who owns the Miami Dolphins, he was joint venturing with Swire Properties, the Hong Kong-based conglomerate, and they couldn't get a lead tenant. So what did they do? Swire decided to dump the dirt, sold it off to a condo developer called
Maybe
the
that's what Ken
Mellows.
Billions should do.
Ken Billions. Glad you brought up Ken Griffin. Simply because we are recording this
Do we
in the
have? Is there
second
10
week of
days until
September.
the autumn? What is that? The autumn solstice? The autumn?
Oh, winter solstice.
No, no, no,
What do you
no,
got?
no.
You got
There's an Isn't there an autumn solstice? Just like there's every season has a solstice. Like it's the apex of that season. Um, no, no, we must have already passed it because summer's over, baby. Q3's ended.
yeah. Football season's here, and the Miami Dolphins suck already. So we're only one week in. So you know the winter is here. But listen, going back to Ken Griffin, Ken Billions, as we nicknamed him, because one of us misspoke and called him that at one point. But remember, he was going to build an office tower, $1 billion office tower, which was going to be the landmark, the symbol of Miami, replacing New York
Supposedly
City as a
still
financial.
is, but he was going to break ground in Q3, which I think we can all agree isn't going to happen.
He announced he was breaking ground in Q3. I came out in Q2 and said it was no way it was happening. So
I
I
think you
just
came
want
out in
Ken
Q1 and said it
Griffin's.
wasn't happening, but I don't want to toot your horn too much.
Ken Griffin, if you're listening, you still got roughly 20 days or so to put a shovel in the ground just to shut me up. Otherwise, I'm taking a victory lap on our first October podcast. But Daniel, let me bring you back to the rental site. So according to the story from South Florida Business Journal, just to give the audience context, they say that prices for studios, 1 bedroom and 2 bedrooms in the Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach area, they fell about 3% year over year this year in terms of the rental rate. And nationally, rents fell about 2.5. So we're actually slipping more than, at least according to this report, than what's going on in the rest of the country. And they said South Florida rental prices, they're still higher than nationwide. We come in at a median asking price, $2,300 a month. If you compare it nationwide, $1,700 a month. So we're roughly about 30% more in our
Wow.
asking prices. So then the question becomes, are landlords asking more in rent because the market is so strong, or are they asking more because they overpaid and they simply are trying to cover their nut and make their numbers look better? So
Well,
that's the question.
the stat that I pulled, I think it was last week, we have more delistings in Dade County than in any other market in the country. Over 50%. So buyers who bought, whenever they bought, they could have bought 20 years ago, they could have bought 3 years ago, but they expected a sell price in their mind, or some cocky broker told them that they could sell it for more than it was really worth. And rather than getting out of it, they're like, you know what? Maybe I don't really have to move. And that's happening more than 50% of the time. So I think the numbers were pulled in June. Hold on. Talk about something, because I'm going to try to pull it up.
Well, I'm going to give you breaking news, because remember, we do a index, and every Tuesday we pull up the numbers, and what we look at is active listings as well as pending sales. What I can tell you is, for the first time in probably 4 months, we actually saw a surge in new listings. So don't be surprised going forward if all of a sudden you hear about it reversing this drop, because listings were terminating, they were canceling, or they were simply running out of time. What you're suddenly seeing this week, we saw actually a whole number of new listings coming onto the market in Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties. So part of it might have to do with the fact that interest rate cuts are expected to begin next week formally.
Look, here we go. July 2025, 59 out of per 100 new homes listed were delisted. Almost 60%. That's crazy, Peter. So what that tells me is people really just didn't have to sell their houses. They were, for lack of a better word, being greedy. No?
True. So back in April, there were 30,000. I look at condos only. 30,000 condo listings in April. We were projecting by the end of the year it would be 40,000. We then fell all the way down to 25,000. Call it 25,000. Call it 25,500. Now this week we suddenly added about 300 to 400 new additional listings on the condo side. So there was a tipping point. Something occurred. Maybe it's right after Labor Day. People are starting to get prepped. They want to beat boop with the market. They want to be the first one to plant the flag. I'm not sure what the situation is, but suddenly we're reversing that. Let's see if it holds for 3 weeks straight. Then we would have a trend. But there's definitely something going on in the marketplace. And the question is, why are they now listing their properties? Do they think they can sell it for some reason because of lower interest rates?
They think they can sell it for they look at what their equity is on the house, or somebody told them how much equity they have on their house. Whoa, like, you bought this for $900,000 6 years ago, we can sell it for 2.5. Now, the likelihood of that actually being true, unless you're living in like one of these crazy little municipalities that saw like crazy growth. I'm thinking about El Portal in terms of single family home. I mean, you saw not 25% appreciation. You saw like 3x. in a few years in El Portal, right? That was one of those crazy submarkets because it was city Miami, but not city Miami. Miami Shores adjacent, in the middle of everything, not sleepy like Coral Gables, but affordable, unlike Coconut Grove. So like El Portal was like this really, really special little place. But we got to move on to
Now,
the next
now,
topic. Oh,
well,
tell me,
well,
tell me, tell me.
if I could just throw out one point to that, the other reason we might be seeing, at least on the condo side, a bump in new listings is this is when you start putting together your budget. Right now, right after Labor Day, the associations start to put together their budget in anticipation of the upcoming year. And remember, reserve requirements and everything else. So you might have people getting first glimpse of what their maintenance fees and special assessments are going to be next year,
Right.
and they might be trying to dump. So that's something to factor in. That's something to watch. So I'll keep
And
you updated on that.
for our viewers, Peter or Pedro, maybe that gives you a hint on where I am in the world. HOA fees for our viewers who care to be more educated every day. What is the percentage of HOA dues? Let me rephrase it. Monthly HOA dues or quarterly HOA dues? What's sort of like the black and white there? Are most associations monthly associations or are most associations quarterly associations? Why does one do it that way or the other way?
Well, it's going to tend to be so most of them are monthly. All the new
Okay.
product is monthly. The quarterly tends to be older communities. It can be over 55 communities. They tend to be more so in Broward, in Palm Beach County, in older areas of Miami-Dade County. But generally speaking, they're monthly. And for a point of reference, mainland, probably looking at $1 a foot if it's on a high rise or a mid rise. And then if you're over on the Barrier Island, ballpark it at 135 to 150 a foot is what I would say, just as like a guiding principle. That's in Dade, Miami-Dade. As you go north, prices come down somewhat.
Thank you for that. And everybody, I hope you're taking notes. I'm kidding. Peter talks about this a lot. You should get this through osmosis by now. It's episode 17, guys. Build, baby, build. Still can't afford rent. Buy, sell, hold. Peter Zalewski.
I am a sell. I think we have way too many rentals. I think there is going to be a problem in the rental market, and I'm not necessarily sure they're going to be able to fill the units. If they can't fill the units, they're probably going to be poaching from individual one-off owners who are going to come under pressure and probably have to cut rental prices increasing. Well, have to cut rental prices as we go forward increasingly.
So the question is, if you're a condo owner, we're selling because you're not going to be able to get the rents that you desire.
You got downward pressure. You got Walmart coming into town, and you're a small-time retailer. Get ready to get crushed.
Yeah, I concur. All right, next up, another week, another hype cycle. We were hunting for stores today. I was traveling a lot, but I'm going to drop an image on the screen. Let's see if Peter can guess what this building is. Don't cheat.
Can I say it now?
Yeah, you can say it now.
Is that Asuka?
Brickell East. Brickell East.
Yep, yep. Sugar. That's what I know it
Oh,
is.
oh, sugar. That's right. Wow, wow. I am an fuck, man. I thought I was being like really cool today, and you just you outpunned me. Um, yes, this is East Azúcar, sugar. Sugar is the name of the rooftop bar on top of Azúcar. Is that place the tea room still open opposite of Azúcar, or did they go bust?
uh, I haven't been to Sugar in quite some time, but last time I was there, it was open. But I think most people, when they go to Sugar, the only thing they're looking at is the skyline and then sort of the talent that's around.
Well, it's East has really become like a corporate hotel. I'm coming in
Yes.
for a few days. I'm a consultant for Royal Caribbean, and I want to stay in Brickell, or I need to stay in Brickell. But I remember when East first opened and Sugar, that rooftop at Sugar, Miami didn't have that before. That was a very New York thing to have a rooftop vantage. Frankly, because why would any developer lose money by putting a public space on the roof of a building when you can put, a private pool or a penthouse and sell it for, well, today those penthouses are going for upwards of $3,000 a square feet. So, to my point, the fact that Sugar exists is amazing. The reason why we're talking about it is because the building was just sold to Blackstone, to Mr. Schwartzman. And he's relevant because his group, not him personally, but his group was the one, Peter, who capitalized Fortune and GenCom, our local developers, in the big renovation of the Ritz on Key Biscayne. So I just thought that sort of uh, Miami developer incest was interesting.
Yeah, you know what's also interesting is this whole Brickell City Centre project. Remember, just to give you a short history on it, the land was taken down in distress by Swire Properties. At the time when Swire Properties took down the land, they were running out of dirt. Their primary development areas on Brickell Key or Clawton Island, one and the same, just a little bit, probably about a block or two to the east. They were running out of dirt. The Great Recession hits. Swire needs dirt. They go in there, they buy this dirt. They come up with some sort of combination of mixed use. So they're going to do retail, they're going to do office, they're going to do condos. And really, the standout, the only thing that was successful, in my opinion, of that entire development was this hotel, 352 units or so, with this sugar at the
Really?
top. Yeah. The condo units, they did not do what Swire thought they were going to do. The retail had to be reconfigured. They had to blow through retailers.
Well,
I'm still not sure if people show up.
that massive tenant that they had, what was it called? The Italian market. It was like an
Oh yeah,
Ely
yeah, yeah.
wannabe, Luna Park.
Yeah. The food
That
hall or
I
whatever you
think
want to
is
call it. Yeah.
it's a putt putt
Disaster.
now, like
Yep.
a high end putt putt. The movie theater CMX just went bankrupt. They're gone. I don't know what they're going to put
Yep.
there.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. Yep.
so I
So
guess
it was a
Simon bought them to turn it around, to turn them all around.
yeah, but overall, if you go back and you look at that project from what was announced versus where it is today, I'd say you have to say it was probably a C minus grade, maybe a D plus. I don't know how much cash they had to pump into it. I met some of the engineers who were working when they were actually doing the construction. They put in underground parking first and foremost. So you got
It
underground parking.
it's
The
cool.
the complexity. Well, it's cool, but the complexity of putting in underground parking in an area
What?
that's
Why?
facing
Explain to our viewers why it's so difficult to do underground parking in Miami, Peter. It has something to do
well,
with
water. Exactly. So you got this water issue. You're not very far removed from where the river is. You got the bay on one side, you got the river on the other side. You're going deep. One of the issues, if I remember correctly, and these conversations were typically held at bars like the Corner Lounge back in the day, when these engineers were in and they were advising how to develop and stuff, and the complexity involved with it. But Swire and Brickell City Centre was going to be this marquee development. They brought in architectural architects who designed a way where you didn't have to air condition the open air areas, where the wind somehow would be caught, kind of like a sail. Think about a sailboat, and you
let me
take
see
the
if I
the,
pull it
the
up for
jib and
us.
the sail, and if you were to tilt it horizontal, that's how it sort of catches the air and it circulates it around. This was really, really, really cutting edge stuff. They had all kind of big tenants signed. The condo units were supposedly doing well, and at the end of the day, I want to say Swire dumped off a bunch of the condos in one of the towers to even the Fortune Group somehow involved with simply moving the units. As mentioned, that Italian mall or Italian food hall, that thing was a disaster. The only thing that I think was made any sense, what is it, Casa Tua? Is it Casa Tua in there
Yeah, they
that
put the Casa Two in
that
there
lunch
and they
spot?
kill it.
Yeah, so Casa Tua, Apple Store, and the East
Well, the Apple
Hotel
Apple
and
Store is
theater.
going to do well wherever they put it, and I think that's
Yeah,
why there's so many eggs in the basket in terms of World Center. Not to change the topic from Brickell City Center.
yeah. But the general point is though, they gave it a 10-year run. It came online in 2016. It's been a 10-year run or so, and now Swire's exiting it. Some people say they're exiting it because of and granted, this deal was separate. The hotel had already been carved out. It had already been sold off. This deal's separate, but I think it's a general vibe. Brickell City Center is online. It's not the original, and it's kind of like the saying you hear on Wall Street. The first settler gets the arrow, the second one gets the land. And that really seems to be kind of what played out, even though that might not be politically correct, but that's just a saying. So the people who went forward, I would say if they look back and they review this, they're going to call this probably a wasted decade because it did not turn out and into what I think they thought. And now they're going back to Brickell City, Brickell Key or Clawton Island to do this Mandarin. So generally speaking, looking at it from afar, I'd give it probably a C minus grade overall. And I just simply use this transaction of the East Hotel as a way to kind of get into that with Swire. Blackstone is smart. I'm sure they'll figure something out, but they're also very corporate. And typically when they come rolling in, that means the game's over. It's going to lose its energy. It's going to lose its vibe. It's going to lose anything that makes it unique. And it'll become corporate run. And like you said, it's probably going to be targeted towards these corporate clients who go there. And it's always the same people. It's like going to a conference. You're bored. The food is what it is. And you get
You got
everything is
bacon wrapped
neutered.
dates and polenta fries with truffle,
That's it.
obviously, obviously,
That's
obviously.
it. So watch for sugar to go the way of like places of South Beach. What was the South Beach restaurant that was real popular? Then they came to Brickell China Grill. They turned into Komodo. That's
Oh
still
yeah, I
popular for the
remember
time.
China Grill. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
sure.
yeah. Yeah, but you go through. Think of Wynwood. Wynwood's a perfect example. Wynwood was cool, and now it's basically getting all corporatized. Or Lincoln Road back
I've
early on. Lincoln Road.
Wynwood is my North Bay Village.
Okay, there you go.
Peter doesn't like North Bay Village.
I don't like North Bay Village because it is a rust stop on the turnpike. That's the way I view it. You're
What
never at a
about
destination.
and,
You're always
and I
stopping off, going somewhere else.
we got to move on, but I love digging into this because I think it's important to have somebody has to have the anti opinion, right? Not that he doesn't have an opinion, but you know what I mean. The con to the pro. But what do you think about Normandy? Do you have a different feeling about Normandy Isle versus North Bay Village?
North Beach is like Hollywood. It's always up and coming. They always do a whole variety of things. It's just it never arrives. And the argument I would make there is typically these areas become popular. And I used to own a condo up there, but these areas become popular when everything else gets more expensive. And people they feel like they need to make an investment. They need to get in, and then once the market corrects, they'll say, "Let me go back to where I actually wanted to be." So I think that's like two steps forward, one step back consistently. Unfortunately, the popular markets are growing at 2 to 3 steps forward each and every time. And when they pull back, they don't tend to pull back as much. Is the argument I would make. Think of the Gables, think of Brickell, think of Aventura, if you will. These areas just keep kind of grinding along. Aventura might not be a perfect example, but it's something on the cheaper. It's a little bit cheaper. But North Bay Village, they seem like 1 step forward, 2 steps back.
All right, another week, another hype cycle. I'm buying it because I read the news.
I'm a I'm a sell on the hype. I don't believe in any of this. I like to push back. I like to be the cynic. I like to be the skeptic.
You
So I
gotta
am a sell
you
on the hype,
gotta you gotta have faith, Peter. Not in all of them, but I'm buying.
and I'm a sell.
All right. I like how we can have the Daniel and Peter, and we don't just have to have like a weird yellow every time. So, speaking of aspirational neighborhoods and when the economy flops, Normandy goes back to shit. The economy's great unless you're living it. A few weeks ago, we talked about what that wasn't a few weeks ago. I think that was a month ago now. Wow, we do a lot of these shows once a week, every Friday, except for this week. But about a month ago, Donald J. Trump, our president of the United States, fired the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics offices. It's funny, Scott Galloway tweeted the other day, or maybe not tweeted, he was on Threads, and perhaps he had been drinking, but he said the BLM numbers are wrong. And he was quickly corrected by saying, I think you're talking about BLS, but I'll let him go because I like him, but I just thought I'd bring it up. Peter, what is going on with the BLS? Because it
Okay,
seems like
so
to me, this person was fired, dishonorably discharged from the Bureau of Labor Statistics office, and there was really nobody to take the place. So they put in sort of an interim departmental head, and now this person who is probably more loyal to the executive office than the previous person, or so we've been told. But there's a new revision, and it's not good.
yeah, the latest revision that just came out, it came out on Wednesday. They reduced the job growth from previously earlier in the year. I think it was up through March. They had to cut it by 1 million jobs, just under 1 million jobs.
Right.
So they had 1 million jobs too many. So what that means is effectively in the last 6 to 9 months, we've actually lost 1.5 million jobs that we had put on the board as gaining. So this is a dramatic type of change. So the conspiracy theorists might say, well, maybe the new people are trying to dump it all in the past because the economy's not doing very well, and let's blame it on the previous administration. So that's one argument that's being made, but let's just sort of discount that altogether. Let's kind of look at where we are today. And the general premise is when interest rates go up, housing activity slows. When interest rates come
Because
down,
mortgage
housing
rates go
activity
up. Got it.
improves. President Trump is a developer. I think he runs the Oval Office like a condo sales office, pre-construction sales office. I'll continue to say
Nice
that because
analogy.
all kinds of stuff is being said, trying to get you to buy into something. Whether or not you do the due diligence to pull the trigger is up to you. That's on you. But that being said, so where am I sort of going with all this? Well, Old Man Powell, Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve chairman, he gave a speech over in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, a little bit about close to a month ago or so, and he talked about that the Federal Reserve might need to pivot. They need to pivot away from inflation, which is one of their two mandates, over to jobs because the
Jobs.
job market is softening. So we were all waiting to see what would happen this week when the inflation numbers came out. So the inflation numbers came out on Thursday, the day we're recording this, because we're not live this week, but we're publishing on Friday. The inflation numbers came out and they said that inflation is rising. This is CPI. This is Consumer Price Index. It
2.7?
is up 2.9. 2.9.
Whoa.
In February, we were at 2.3. The goal is 2%. So Jerome Powell, Old Man Powell, has been focused on getting to 2%. And once you have that under control, then you can shift over to jobs and you have room to work with. Now we have inflation, partially because of Liberation Day tariffs. Remember, when you import something into the United States, the person picking it up, they have to sign some documents and they got to pay cash to the federal government in order to get it released. Now, those people who are paying
Right.
the cash, they can either absorb it and or they can dump it on the end user. That's what we're up against. So that means prices are going to go up because now there's an extra tax. If you want to make your nut, you still got to do what you got to do. So we have inflation rising to 2.9%. It was supposed to be at 2. We were close, but we didn't get there. And now suddenly we're shifting over to deal with jobless rate, where job growth. Remember, you got AI, you got Doge layoffs, you got all these other things. And just for a double dip today, if you will, daily double, they also announced about the same time of the inflation numbers, they had announced that the jobless claims had actually gone up. Ballpark, they were supposed to be coming at 250,000. They came in at
So
265,000.
all these kids on TikTok talking about I can't find a job. You got these new grads being interviewed by the Wall Street Journal and the Times saying, I studied computer science at Georgetown and finished, maybe not top 10 in my class, but top 50. I would think that it'd be fairly easy for this person to find a job. It's not. It's not. You got
It's not.
the big meme in the last few weeks. Not that I track memes or anything, but I am significantly, and I'd like to say significantly younger than Peter. So I am in tune with my Gen Z youth, my youths. Joe Pesci, my cousin Vinny. Anybody. Um, but the young woman from I forgot what she might have gone to Georgetown and she taking a job at Chipotle, which there's nothing wrong with, by the way. If you're 22 years old and you can't find a job and you need money, go drive for Uber Eats. So what? Like it's fine. You will figure it out if you're smart, if you're dedicated, and you're ambitious. It does suck that you probably took $250,000, $300,000 worth of loans to go get a degree that nobody's really going to give a shit that you have in 10 years anyway. But if it taught you how to study and work hard, and really put the effort, then you'll be okay. But yeah, that sentiment's gotta suck, and I empathize. I've been
But
there.
here's the good part. Here's the good part, though. If you did take out that student loan and study something that's not going to be pertinent going forward, especially like coding, and you have $300,000 in debt, the good news is interest rates are likely to go down. Why? Because now we're focused on jobs. So the Federal Reserve's meeting next week. Federal Open Markets Committee's meeting. 2-day meeting. They will vote as to how do they go forward. We came into this meeting after Jackson Hole a month ago thinking there would be a
Whose
25
hole?
basis point cut. At Jackson Hole in Wyoming, where the Grand Tetons are located. This is where they do the annual banking conference. So we came in thinking there would be a 25 basis point cut, which is a quarter of a percent, because President Trump had been jawboning Powell just like he did back in 2018. What do we come to find today, Daniel? They're now calling for 75 basis point cut next week because of
75 in the one meeting?
in the one meeting, because the signs that they're getting from the labor market are just falling off a cliff. So even though inflation's going up, so generally speaking, the way it happens is if inflation's high, you raise interest rates, so there's people can't afford it, so they don't buy as much. Therefore,
Right.
the demand goes
You
down.
put a lid on inflation.
Yeah, but if the jobs are bad, then what do? You lower rates because you want companies to go out there and expand because they got
But
cheap
what
money.
happens if you lower them too fast? And I think that's what our boy Ken Billions talks about.
And that's what Ken Billings was talking about. He wrote
You
an
get
op-ed that was
stagflation.
published against stagflation. And stagflation is the worst of all because
It's the
basically
worst of
prices are
all
going up
because you have no growth and you have job loss. Nobody's spending money and there's inflation.
and it costs more. So that's basically where we are right now. Depending on which side you listen to, it sounds like it could go one way or the other. Just for kicks, we did a report last week and we took a look at prior to Liberation Day. This was the policy pivot that the Trump administration made. We went from free trade globalization to suddenly high tariff. You want to come here, you pay a VIG in order to get in. That's what we changed on April the 2nd. So we took a look at condo sales just as a symbolic policy pivot for the U.S. Approach to the world. And, obviously immigration and the aggressive immigration policy would be included in that. But what we found is the average sales price per door as well as per unit for a condo in 2025 decreased by 10% post Liberation Day on a price per door basis and 7% on a price per square foot basis.
Is that the full condo market or is that is that 30-year vintage?
That's gonna be all of South Florida. That'll
That's
be all
going
of
to be
South Florida.
all of South Florida.
Now, granted, prior to Liberation Day, it was the winter buying season. So people were down here. Maybe they did deals, and then you had post where it's summer, it's hurricane season, it's hot and sweaty. There's not a lot of events, so there's a bunch of different factors to contribute. But just looking at it, just one dimensional, basically 10% price cut on a price per door basis, 7% on a price per square foot basis. And why is that? Well, part of it might be the point where people simply can't afford this stuff. They want to try to exit. Maybe it has to do with the Surfside condo collapse legislation. Could have a whole variety of things, but just something to pay attention to. Downward pressure on pricing. And Daniel, like I asked you last time, if interest rates come down, remember, 5 handle is what they're talking about. That's what gets the housing market going again. Right now, we're currently at a 7, but probably going to be down to a 6 a week from now. What happens if interest rates are low, but you don't have a job or you're concerned about losing your job? Do you buy real estate? And that's the part we're going to need to figure
Well,
out real soon.
Is the marketing good enough to still believe in the American dream? And can you afford it? Is Gen Z buying into that like our parents and our uncles and the generation of yesteryear did? Albeit the income to mortgage expenditure monthly was much closer. Now it's much wider. People are spending more and more on housing, especially in South Florida. I think, what was it? A property owner has to have something like an extra $50,000 or $60,000 a year than a renter. I'm butchering the statistic, but it's more,
Yeah.
significantly more.
The study I saw was from Bankrate. Bankrate is a financial website, financial news website. They also do other things. In Miami-Dade County or in South Florida, it was $21,000 cheaper to rent than they actually own, is what their number said. And that report
Well,
probably
and
came out
I think
probably 3 months ago.
a lot of that has to do with our last story. But we have one more story before we get to that. And okay, spoiler alert: it's about insurance, guys. Buy, sell, hold. The economy's great unless you're living it, Peter. I do want to put an asterisk on this buy, sell, hold, though. Folks, if they lower interest rates by 75 bips, that's what the cool kids call it. They call them bips. 75 bips. If we get 75 bips, it sounds like I'm buying drugs. Just let me get some bips, man. So if those interest rates come down, those interest rates, the federal fund rate, right? If that comes down, but the 10-year treasury yield continues to go up, what are the consequences of that, Peter? Tell our viewers now, just once and
Well,
for all, because it's not 100% correlated, guys.
it's correct. It is not correlated. I mean, the 10-year treasury is going to be based on selling debt. what do you have to offer in order to get somebody to buy it versus the federal funds rate? This is what they're able to control. So in theory, they should move in unison, but they don't necessarily do that. Why would they not do that? Maybe if the U.S. government or the U.S. Debt, which is on the rise, maybe if it was higher risk.
Big
If
beautiful
something's
bill.
riskier, big beautiful bill, we're going to add all this debt, people are losing health care, all kinds of stuff related to that. If it's higher risk, think about it. Somebody's got a FICO score in the 600s versus somebody in the 800s. It's going to make a big difference what your interest rate is, whether you're prime or subprime. So as our debt goes up, as our issues go up, if in fact this judge is ruling that the tariffs are illegal and trillions or billions of dollars are going to have to be returned to those importers, I mean, you got all kinds of uncertainty out there. And as a result, the 10-year treasury might actually go up, even though the federal funds rate is coming down.
Which would push mortgage rates up.
Which would push mortgage rates out. Yeah, the general rule of thumb is you add 3 points to whatever the 10-year treasury is. It's not perfect, but it gives you a ballpark. And those 3 points are going to basically be the spread that the bank's going to live off of, junk fees and everything else. And that 4.5, which is at right now, that's the federal funds rate. That's what the central bank charges to a bank in order to borrow money on a short-term basis, because they have to maintain certain ratios.
Buy, sell, hold. The economy's great unless you're living it, Peter.
I am a buy on that, because I think those who are living it realize what's really going on. And as a side note, I walked through Coconut Grove, your stomping grounds, Daniel, last night, 9 o'clock. No cars on the street, nobody parked, all the
It was
restaurants
pouring
shuttered.
though.
No, well, maybe, but when I was walking, it had poured earlier today. Even a little a dive bar of sorts called Barry's, they had shut up shop before 10 o'clock. They brought down the rails because they don't have windows. They brought it down. Everything was cleaned up. The parking lots were empty. You would have thought that we were on hurricane warning. How few people were actually on the street, to the
Well,
point where
no,
it almost felt like
it was
early days of the
nasty.
pandemic.
I was at the airport yesterday. It was wild.
All right, all right. For me, it seemed like normal.
All right. All right. We're buying. We're buying. The economy's great unless you're living it. It's the truth. But we'll see what happens next week with the federal board of governors. Surfside fell long before it collapsed. Surfside. I'm thinking of the town of Surfside. We're talking about Surfside all the time. We're talking about the tower in Surfside that tragically collapsed about 4 years ago now. New investigation. Well, the same investigation has some new findings. One of the hypotheses regarding that collapse was concerning the pool. And the findings from that is that the pool indeed was one of the critical catalysts for that tragedy.
Correct. So the collapse occurred in June of 2021. It was the early stages of South Florida really starting to take off in terms of price wise. And when it collapsed, there was all kinds of concerns about A, the 98 people who died, but B, why did it collapse? Because we have a community that's dotted with these older buildings. We have something here in Miami-Dade County as well as Broward County called the 40-year recertification. And this was linked to a office building collapsing in like 1973, 1975, something like that. And as a result, the building was in and around 40 years. So the county adopted a policy saying, listen, maybe we should check every building at the 40-year mark. So Miami-Dade and Broward County, they would check them at 40 years. Rest of the state, you didn't have to do anything. So this Surfside tower goes down. It goes down. I think it was built in 70. Yeah, it was built in like 71, and it collapses in 2021.
I thought it was even more
Oh no,
recent than
81,
that.
81. I'm
It was
sorry,
in the
81.
80s. Yeah, it was 80s.
81. So it was 40 years old, right at that 40-year recertification. The building had been going through the process of being evaluated. It was evaluated. It was identified as having all kinds of structural problems and other issues. It was very obvious to those engineers who had inspected it, who were signing off on it. And the work was identified, told the association didn't have enough cash, nor did they want to raise the cash. You had people who had owned there for quite some time. And as a result, one thing leads to another, and it ultimately collapses. All these people die. Legislation is then put in place. This is this generation's Hurricane Andrew. Anybody who
You've said
lived
that
back
before.
during Yeah, 1992 when Hurricane Andrew hit, it changed everything in South Florida, at least Dade and Broward County. This has changed everything, not only in the state of Florida with the legislation, but also even nationwide because other states are adopting these same types of policies. Why are they doing it? Because insurance. Insurance companies don't want to provide insurance. So the feds did not trust the locals to be able to do the investigation and figure out what the hell happened. They wanted to take it out of the, let's call it partisanship, and they wanted to put it in the hands of the feds so they could understand it. Then they could come up with policy. So now they are out with their preliminary report. This is basically the final stage. This is letting everybody know, hey, this is what we're going to announce. We might have some revisions, but this is basically what we're going to announce. So they are identifying the fact that this structural defect of the swimming pool, some planters that had been added, as well as simply a lack of maintenance, but more so water, I guess, coming from some kind of leak that was dumping into an area might have been the actual catalyst. They couldn't figure out what has triggered it. Like, why suddenly does it all go up in flames? Was there an
Right.
arsonist? Like you always hear about these wildfires. So they're pointing to this leak that intensified beforehand, and basically the pool deck gave away 7 minutes before it tore down the entire building. Think about like the tension base, like if you live in a condo and you look at your roof, your ceiling, it's all tension based, and they don't let you really drill into your ceiling because if you do, you might break some of the rebar or pop it, and then this tension suddenly snaps and it kind of unravels. I'm not an engineer, but these are some of the things they're sort of suggesting about. But one final tidbit from this preliminary report that just came out, I just want to read it. It says water was also seen leaking from the ceiling of the garage in an area that had many cracks and repairs over the years, according to the agency. The flow of water dramatically increased in the hours before the collapse. So this seems to be what they're going to peg it to, some kind of leak somewhere that basically was the cause. We all know how powerful water can be. But what I
It's
will say
awful.
though is my final tidbit is if anybody looks at a map, what they were going to see is there's a road called 87 Terrace. 87 Terrace separates the city of Surfside to the
Wait,
north.
Peter,
Excuse me.
we got maps here. This is buy,
There we
sell,
go.
hold
There we go.
Miami. We are technologically inclined.
Okay. So the town of Surfside will be to the north. The city of
So
Miami
look,
Beach will be to the south.
I think we can just draw a line around Surfside. This is Surfside, guys.
Okay.
So you
Okay.
see that red little outline there? That's Surfside. And
Okay.
then
If
we
you could drill
have
down to 87th.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
right here. It's right here.
There you go. All right. Go a little bit more. I want to go south of that.
Oh,
There
you
you
want to go
go.
south?
Yep. I want to be right there. Yeah, that's a perfect view. Yeah, if you can drill in on the 8700 Park building, that'll be the building immediately north of the park. There you go. And if you could go a little bit to the north, yep, keep going, keep turning, keep turning, keep turning. Okay, now, yep, yeah, perfect. Okay, so right there between the vacant site, which is going to be a new condo building, it was sold by a group out of Dubai, and the tower that's standing, which was put up by Terra. Right there is the divider between Surfside to the north, where the vacant lot is. That's where Champlain stood, and Miami Beach, which is to the south. In order to put up that project 87 Park, they got the city of Miami Beach, which controlled the crown of the street south. They got them to close the street so they could shoehorn in a parking garage. And the people who were complaining,
So 87 Parkers in Miami Beach, and the Surfside Tower was the first building on the southern border of Surfside. I did not know this.
yeah, so if you zoom back in, you're going to see that the parking garage, see that? That was a full width street. It's no longer a street. Half of the street was taken so they could put a parking garage. And you see the other half of the street. So think about a two-way street. Well, they took half of
Okay.
it. And
Right
that's
here
because they
on
wanted to,
the west side here, there's 87
yep,
Terrace, and this used to go
yep,
all the way to the beach for like public beach
used to go all the way
access
to
or
the beach.
something.
Correct.
Right, just
So
like
the
all of these
people,
streets here, like
yep.
88th
So the
Street.
people in
Got it.
Champlain Tower were saying, "What the hell? You guys are doing all this? We don't have a buffer between one building and another. Our building's older." So that was one of the issues, and that's one of the things that led to the relatively rapid settlement for the $1 billion with a B that was paid out to the families of the victims, the 98 family or 98 people who ultimately died. But basically, this generation's Andrew, it's changed condo laws and the condo association financial cliff that at least what we call it, it's having an effect right now, and people are trying to get out, and pricing is coming down simply because it's much more expensive to own a condo, especially an old condo nowadays than it used to be. So that whole thing about buying a condo and living cheap and you got to deal with condo commandos, that kind of went by the wayside. Now it is a premium to live in one of these condos and own
Oh
it, I
yeah,
should say.
and then it's crazy. You look at some of these buildings that they're putting Let me put the screen share back over here because I know I've gotten feedback, Peter. People love our flybys. They love our tours, our Google Map tours. But these are the old buildings, right? And then, bam, you got Four Seasons Hotel at the Surf Club,
Yep.
and that, folks, is top condo sale in the county, $6,700 a square foot for the penthouse, right?
Wow. 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 Big numbers.
Big numbers. Some of these buildings, they don't even market. Like, look at this. Look at this one. You ever heard of it? You ever seen a brochure for this? Nope.
Because it's all internal. It's all just
And
word
no,
of
yeah, they
mouth.
do
There's a,
internal
yeah.
sales. They don't hire us. They don't hire brokers. They don't need to. They got the direct line to Oprah. She'll buy
Yep.
one, maybe two. Zuck will buy one. Bezos might, but he doesn't need it because he's got half of Indian Creek at this point. Not half. There are other people who live on Indian Creek besides Jeff Bezos, folks. Um, I
The
digress.
la the
Oh,
last tidbit about that, if you will. So the Dubai-based group who bought the dirt, they bought it for $120 million.
Damak.
Damak. They're supposed to bring it online by 2029. So just to kind of show you what's going to happen. And then what I would tell you is part of this Surfside collapse. Now that the report is at the final stages of being approved, there will be other changes. They're probably going to be federal. And I think by the time we get to the other side of the Surfside collapse and the legislation and it being a stable market, you're probably talking about in building again, it's probably going to be about 2031 is what I would anticipate. So we still got a while to go to get through all this, and you are seeing words about terminations and other stuff all kind of being prompted by the changes that went into effect legislatively and financially because of Surfside. So Surfside was a moment in time that will be talked about forever and
Right.
ever and ever
Post
from the
Andrew.
condo
Post
market.
Andrew.
Post Andrew. Yep. Yep.
Um, yeah, I mean, if you talk to any contractor who lived through Andrew, they'll tell you. We were actually talking about this with a client a few weeks ago that even the shoddiest construction in South Florida, it's got to be built to Florida building code. So you're talking about concrete block construction, rebar. You can't just build a little wall. No, it's got to be solid. So even the worst of the worst construction down here, and there is pretty bad construction down here. It's secure, right? Because if it's not, and this is a great transition into our final story of the day, if it's not, then you can't insure it. And I know there are a lot of people buying homes in cash in South Florida. Miami Realtors, we like to talk a lot about the buying power of cash, how interest rates be damned. We're the wealthy are buying in cash anyway, but most people take out a mortgage, just generally
Yep.
speaking. Well, it's an industry, 30-year mortgage. Um, but insurance is an issue. And before we jump into that, damn it, I almost killed this transition. We didn't do buy, sell, hold on. Surfside fell long before it collapsed. Um, Listen, I'm not an investigator. I just read the reports like anyone else. Absolute tragedy. I didn't know that bit about it being on the city line between Surfside and Miami Beach. That seems like such a freaking boondoggle, and it's awful. Um, my heart goes out to everyone who had somebody who perished in that tragedy, and I just hope that everything that's come since then, the state legislature, the acts, the laws, the ordinances, just the general thinking around condo safety since then, hopefully we have something to show for it, and the world is better, right? Like, let's not let this happen again. Um, so I'm a buy if this is what we're talking about. Good investigation. We've recognized what caused this, and we won't let it happen ever, 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 ever again.
I'm a
It's
buy
just,
on that as well. Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So, last topic, turn those frowns upside down. Insurance says your roof isn't good enough. And when I say insurance, I'm talking about homeowners insurance. You just put a new roof on your house and you think it's great. Well, insurance is probably going to think it's great. You put a new roof on your house. But if you're in a condo building that had an appraisal come through, had an inspector come through and said, hey, your term of life, your usefulness of this roof is 45, 50, 60 years. What happens if an insurer disagrees? And this is what we're talking about. This is the story that Peter sent me today. What's the condominium association? Ocean House, Ocean something?
Yeah, it is called the Ocean Parks
Ocean
Condo Association.
Parks.
Yep, yep.
So
It's
what
up in
happened over
June.
there?
So this come out of the Palm Beach Post. Here's the headline: Florida's condo crisis. Think your roof is okay to be insured? Well, so did this Jupiter Condo Association. Basically, what happened is the condo association was going in. They have a series of buildings. Ultimately, they have 15 roofs. And because of that, they went forward. They were getting their insurance quote. They were trying to simply continue on with it. They were told that, yeah, there's still, a number of years left on the lifespan of the roof. And then they come to find out after the fact that, you know what, we reconsidered. Actually, 13 of your 15 need to be repaired. And by the way, you need to get it done
Oh,
in
it's
a short
awful.
period of time. And it's going to cost you about $4.5 million. That simply came out of nowhere after it had already been signed off on
And who? It was a
previously.
private insurer. Was this Citizens or was this a private insurer?
It says that let me see here. Again going off the Palm Beach Post. It says that if they wanted to maintain their policy from what is likely the only company in the state that will insure them for the full replacement value, Citizens Property Insurance, their agent told them that on September the 3rd. So it was Citizens that was doing it, and it says the policy had 187 years of remaining usable life left on these roofs. Remember, 15 of them.
187 years. Nothing's 187 years except for the time horizon for investments for the Catholic Church.
But there were so with 13 buildings, they had 15
Ah,
on the
okay,
roofs.
okay,
They,
okay.
they
Got it,
took it
got
all
it, got it.
together. They said they had 187 years left combined. 328 unit condo association. But then this year's policy renewal showed that the life had suddenly vanished. And there's a quote coming from one of the condo board members saying, "I know this is going to be frustrating." She literally said it was a
No
mistake.
shit.
Is what this condo board member told the unit owners,
Oh
because
my
the unit
God, that's
owners immediately going to
awful.
think it's a hustle. Somebody's getting greased. Somebody's
Yeah,
getting paid
cousin
off.
Paco. Again, we use fictitious names all the time. If you have a cousin named Paco, I don't know him, but cousin Paco knows the HOA president, right?
Exactly. He's the insurance. He's the one writing the policy or whatever the case may be.
Well,
So
you
let's
know
just do
what?
some.
To not detract and go back to the last topic, but part of the condo legislation that came out, Vicky Lopez and all of our folks up in Tallahassee, part of that legislation that made it through, part of that law was that the folks doing the recertifications on these buildings cannot also be the remediators. They can't be the contractors. It's like I had a thing with a client a few weeks ago. We were talking about mold remediation services. Dude,
Yep.
it's South Florida. A mold remediation guy or a mold inspector, if his job to put food on his table for his kids, to send them to summer camp at Disney, it's very expensive. He's going to find mold. It's 85% relative humidity everywhere. There's mold, guys. If you don't want mold, move to Denver. There's probably mold there too. But seriously, or get yourself a dehumidifier. I just got a dehumidifier for my house. Fantastic. You don't need mold remediation services. But that action that an inspector might have a relationship with somebody on the board. These boards are immensely powerful. And especially now that they're going to allow, part of the legislation, it's a process. It's growing, we got to talk about it. But part of the legislation is that these HOAs are going to be able to finance and take out credit to fund the reserves. So, I can just see it happening, Peter. See it happening. What are there? 27,000 some odd condo associations with 1.5 million units across the state of Florida. You're telling me not even if 1% of them are crooked. 1%. That's 250 corrupt associations. I think it's more.
Well, and keep in mind, most of these association positions now they suddenly have to go and get some education. Before they didn't have to, and these are unpaid. These are voluntary
Yeah, it's a volunteer. Then you get
positions.
nothing for it. It's a power trip. It's a total ego trip.
I used to be on a condo board, and what I would tell you is the only thing you got back is in return for your time and all of the outrage you had to experience. If you went into the elevator, people were bitching and moaning. You went to the pool, they were bitching and moaning. You went in the parking garage, they were bitching and moaning. You were at public shopping, they saw you, they were bitching and moaning, and they would give you free coupons or stamps in case somebody came over to visit you, so they didn't have to pay for parking.
Oh,
That's
they
all
didn't
you
have to
got in
pay for
return.
valet, and then everybody pulled together to get you a $20 Starbucks gift card for Christmas.
Exactly. So the idea that some of these condo association members aren't going to get greased, these board members, that's completely la la
That
land. You know, they're going to get their bathroom
I
suddenly
lived.
refurbished
I
to
have
vote
I
for
have it.
whatever it's going to be.
I have an anecdote. I have an anecdote. So I rented. I'm not going to say the name of the building because it's scummy. But it's Midtown. Midtown, where the Target and the Marshalls is,
Yep.
and I was renting. And when I moved in, the pool was under construction, and they made it clear, hey, you're going to get a discount on this unit because the pool's under construction. It should be finished in about 6 months. Not a big deal. I move out a year later. The pool is still under construction. My buddy, my roommate, wound up staying in the unit. About 6 months later, I go to visit him. The pool is still under construction. This was a 6-month job. We've now 3x the timeline. I go, dude, what the hell is going on? He goes, man, you're not going to believe what happened. I go, try me. The president of the HOA was using the contractors for the pool to renovate his own unit.
Imagine
It's
that.
not, and it's so easy for these guys, right? Listen, we sort of went off on a tangent
Well,
with corrupt
well,
HOAs because they're so easy to talk about.
but here's kind of an example. So we said 328 units in this association. We said 4.5 million dollars is what they suddenly have to spend within a short period of time. I think it was 8 months in order to
Right.
get their policy renewed. You're looking at 13,700 a door. Typically, these special assessments have to be paid within a year. So basically, everybody's got to come up with more than $1,000 a month to cover a roof or a series of roofs that, according to one of the unit owners, this is what the unit owner says. Guys lived in the complex for 9 years. This is what he says. He says, we had an independent inspection that indicated our roofs were in good condition with a remaining useful life of 8 years.
So the insurers have the authority to take that independent inspection and just tell them to shove it.
Piss off, basically. And according to the story, more than 1.5 million property insurance policies have been canceled in Florida in the first half
Well,
of 2025.
because here's the thing I mean, we're talking about Citizens, right? I was kicked off Citizens. Citizens, it's their mandate is to kick people off.
Because they're supposed to be the insurer of last resort. It says
So
most of the reason these people have been canceled is because of the roof. They always look at the roof. And keep in mind, now they're using satellites and they're using drones to actually get a better perspective of the roof. So you got to wonder in whether that's having anything to do with it as well.
well, okay, I got stories today, Peter. I got kicked off
Nice.
of Citizens. I got kicked off of Citizens because a private insurer came in 19% above what my policy was. And the law states that they have to come up within 20% of your current policy premium in order for you to be forced off a Citizen. So if their premium would have been 21% more than I was paying, Citizens is like, oh, well, I guess we got to hold on to them. They came in 19% above what I was paying. And that, that's a teaser rate, right? Because next year or within the next 2 years, it's going to double. And I'm
Did you
screwed.
say
I can't get back
collusion?
to Citizens. Huh?
What did you say collusion? Is that what I
No,
heard?
I have a runny nose. Collusion. Um, uh,
Imagine that. And
um,
everybody who's watching, if you're not familiar how this works, so we don't have state income tax, state of Florida. So as a result of that, your property taxes are 2%. So based on the 2%, a third goes to the city, a third goes to the county, a third goes to the school board. So as prices go up, the coffers of these governmental bodies or school entities, that's how they get their cash in order to pay for stuff. So
supposedly,
everybody is
we're in a
encouraged.
$402 million budget deficit here in Dade. Where's
Well,
the money,
everybody's
Peter?
encouraged, but people are encouraged to keep the circus going. You need to keep all the plates in the air, if you will, because if it comes crashing down,
Well,
you get situations like we have.
then we
Talking
don't
about.
want to cut property taxes out of the equation.
That's a completely different
You
description or
and we will talk
discussion.
about that next week. We're giving you a little teaser for next week. I think that's a good one, Peter. We might have to have like a double topic on property taxes in Florida. Um, so you buy, sell,
I would
hold
love
on.
it.
Insurance says your roof isn't good enough. You bastard.
I am a buy on the fact that that's correct. I am a sell on the policy and the way that they're handling it. But I recognize that that's correct, so I am a buy on that, and I think it's truthful.
We got a lot of green on that board today, Pete.
That's right. That's right.
Well, listen, folks, thanks for being patient with us. We know you look forward to watching us live and to watching us screw up, but don't worry, we do very little post-processing on these things. I mean, Peter and I were talking about it just before we hit record. This just goes straight up to YouTube, Substack, Instagram, TikTok, wherever, LinkedIn. We're on LinkedIn now too. Wherever your social media addiction takes you, we will be there to feed you real estate analysis and hopefully mildly witty antics. But that's the show for this week, guys. It is September. Oh, it's September 11th. Hats off. September 11th, 2025. This is the recording. We'll be posting this tomorrow on September 12th. Putting a lid on it, Pete. And that's it. We will see you guys next week. Possibly another recorded session, but definitely we'll be back to regular scheduled programming towards the end of September. Fret not, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. Later, Pete.
Bye. Ciao, ciao.